Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the From Spear podcast. My name is Jacob, and I'll be your host today. I'm joined by Nicholas, Leya, and our very special guest, Mr. Viliam Vala.
Hello.
Viliam is an animator, and would you like to give us a little introduction?
Okay. I specialized in stop motion animation. I studied at the Victorin College of the Arts in Melbourne. I studied animation there because I used to live there. That was in 96. I graduated in 96. And I'm recently working on an animated feature based on a French book that's stop motion. Beside the animation, I do editing, also teach editing at the film school. And that's basically for the start, I think.
That's great. It's good to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
So to start off, what interested you initially about animation? What made you attracted to that field?
Well, I was born in a country where animation was always very strong. No, used to be very strong actually, which is the Czech Republic. It's in the middle of Europe, and we had a couple of people here, like Jiří Trnka and Karel Zeman, who were basically one of the pioneers in Trnka in stop motion, both in stop motion animation. Actually, Karel Zeman was more of a visual effects artist at that time, who also influenced people like George Lucas and Tim Burton. They grew up, and also Terry Gilliam. They grew up on Karel Zeman, and his quite amazing films, and how he put together visually without the computers. And Trnka was stop motion. He wasn't an animator, was a director. He basically never animated much. He had animators to do that, but he was illustrator, designer, director, storyteller, and he, at his time, he was basically the only one who could, who was an opponent to Disney. So it was quite big. The tradition was big, and so as kids, we obviously that was a long time ago, and since the animation has gone much better in the world than it was getting in the Czech Republic, particularly because the totalitarian regime here was restricting any collaboration between the rest of the world, and also they were trying to keep to like Trnka's traditions, and so they didn't progress while the rest of the world did. We didn't. We kind of got stuck. But anyway, the tradition was here. It just wasn't being developed, which I think changed recently, which with a film that I worked on. So it was really good. It was the Even Mice Belong to Heaven, where for the first time in stop motion animation, we actually got very close to the world standards of animating stop motion feature film on all levels, basically. So there was a huge, like a leap towards the, otherwise before it was kind of nice and arty, but still very traditional, sometimes unsellable for the mainstream audience. That was more for artists, people who would enjoy the style. But that's changed with the Mind Belong to Heaven. And so even the film that I'm doing now has this kind of world contemporary proprieties of stop motion animation that that fit it to today's world of stop motion animation. If I said it somehow like this, I don't know. So and I don't know. I never wanted to be an animator like when I was a kid, and it's the stop motion films that were made here. They usually scared the kids to death. So kids have traumas from Czech stop motion animations when they watched it, as kids. So it wasn't anything that you wanted to really like be anticipating of. But later on, when I was adult, I kind of studied live action directing, and somehow I decided that rather than working with actors who are selfish and egoistic, and you have to kind of battle with them all the time, I started to play with things and puppets, and I that's how I found my way into it. And then I went to study animation further on. So I guess that was my but I do not put animated films in front of live action films. I think each of it has its own purpose, and it is being made for a reason. It's not like, because obviously animated films are a lot more expensive than live action films because they're so time consuming. So it wouldn't be you would just to do an animated film. You need to have it quite sorted, the story and everything, how you're going to do it, and who's going to pay, where you're going to get the money, and because it's very time consuming, and you need to kind of fulfill the requirements of like stop motion animation, which is different than computer animation. So you need to think a lot more about for example, the story, because for like a 3-minute film, you may be working, or you may be animating like 3 months, 4 months, and then the preparation, making the stuff, and then all the rest, like a normal film, the post-production and sound and everything. It's too expensive, time expensive to just have it go into it unprepared. So about 3-minute short film in live action can be done in half a day or 1 day, and then if it doesn't work, okay, well, half a day of fun. This would be like 3 months of hard work. So yeah, it's maybe I've said too much for the question.
It's good hearing your elaboration on that, and hearing about your process, and again, sort of your inroad into becoming an animator.
So what is your preferred style of animation?
Well, I like puppets. I like to touch the things that I'm working with. So anything that you can actually touch, which is the stop motion. Okay, so not people are different now. Pixelation is also something that you can actually touch and push and stuff, but that is a little bit more difficult with people, and it's very tiring for the actors. But if you have a puppet and you have a camera set up, and then you just move it slightly differently, and it does what you want. That's what I prefer to work with, in like a nice, quiet 4 seconds a day, which is not much. And I quite like the style of like Aardman, for example. Like Early Man and stuff, or Tim Burton's. I'm saying Tim Burton, but he hasn't directed half of his films. Okay, so Selig did. But let's say I'm still kind of half brain dead after the temperatures I had. So I'm gonna be remembering stuff. The Bride.
The Corpse Bride.
The Corpse Bride. Thank you. It's just, but it's gonna be normal. I could. Yeah, I'm just getting back my stuff. So yeah, that would be the style that I would like to do in the future. Obviously, I'm doing something similar like that at the moment. But the budgets of his films and the budgets of the films that we're doing here is also different, and the main difference then it could be for example the quality of the puppets that are used for animation are probably 10 times more expensive in his films, and obviously you can just do more quality movement with puppets like this than with something that is kind of done on a budget. It looks different. It looks like, I don't mind actually the roughness sometimes of the animation. It kind of gives you the human touch rather than for example as contrasty to some of the animation that are done in this way. It would be the Leica studios in the United States, where it's super perfect, and I have difficulties to actually distinguish between, even to guess if it's a puppet or a computer. It's so perfect, and the animators, and I've seen some making of, and there's some very young guys, which I was really surprised, and they are super talented, amazing geniuses, which they demonstrate, I think, the edge of possibility when it comes to stop motion. But for me, it's on the edge of being acceptable as handmade, because it's perfect. And handmade, I like the attribute of handmade for me is also that it's not as perfect. That there is this human touch. If you have a handmade, handcrafted or hand painted something, you may even get how they mix the colors on the bottom of a cup or something. There are some things that are beautiful because they're not perfect.
Sort of like people who have a preference for watching things on traditional film, almost because of like the grain or those little imperfections you were talking about. It's
because it has an atmosphere, and for example, grain, they are adding grain into the films now because it's lacking and it looks flat. And even though there is no grain in normal world, you still kind of like the atmosphere of the grain. Also, the film celluloid had some actual depth, which the digital doesn't. So, and had the particles were not distributed evenly. So every frame you have slightly different distribution of particles, but the CCD will always every frame use exactly the same number of pixels that are placed exactly at the same position. So yes, it's this perfection that is kind of killing, not killing, I don't know. It's if you shoot something in this way digitally, then you will try to actually make it a little bit more organic. I would use word organic because it has a life to it on its own, while digital, it doesn't. It's not alive. It's not organic. It's unorganic. So, and I think that's the difference. That humans, because we are organic creatures, we kind of like the organic way, not chaotic or all over the place or really disturbing to look at, but something, alive. I think that is it. Yeah, similar thing. Yeah,
It feels natural.
Natural, exactly.
I'm interested. It seems like you've had a pretty storied sort of time throughout animation. What are some stories you've picked up along the way? Any interesting times on set, or just little anecdotes about your time as an animator?
Well, recently, actually, like 3 weeks ago, I was on a set, and we are like, I'm 55, and there is another person who's 65, old animator, and then the new kids, yeah, young kids, or 25, 30, kind of yeah. And I was given a scene when a crowd of kids is leaving school through the door, and I was supposed to animate it myself, which was I would have to go behind the set, move the characters there, push them through the door, and then go back, get on top of the set, and move them, and then drill a hose and screw the puppets, because the puppets need to be secured obviously by the tie down, and so they gave me Fanya, this 65-year-old guy, to help me at the back, and he was sending basically the kids to me, and I was collecting them, so to speak, and letting them walk further from the school. And we because it was very hard for me to tie down anything that was out of reach, and so he had to go under the table, lay down on his back, put the screw in, and I was kind of lying over and holding the puppet, and they would screw it in. And I went like, and we made a photo of this, and it's like they've given two old people this exercise, while all the young guys had they super easy to reach sets to animate. And we went like, look what's happening here. We are just stretching and just going like this, two old folks. And so it was quite funny. So we were told that next time we're gonna get something better, which we didn't. We got the same, and then the same again, and then the same again. So I You caught me with this. I maybe remember something through. If something got on my mind, I will just say it. Oh, I used to, when I did mice, I used to call for the tie downs, because when the set is like too long, when it's too far, you can't reach from both. So there are other ways to do it, but I used to call a young girl from the office to help me. So she would go under the table and she would screw it. And there was a Polish animator next door, and she saw it and she went like, oh, hang on, I'm doing all this myself. And I said, well, you don't have to. And she said, what do you mean? You are the princess. You are the princess here. You need an assistant. And we laughed. And I said, yes, I just want an assistant. So rather than doing it the hard way, and she was also young, but she was very good. She actually used to animate at Harman. So yeah, well, otherwise, I have funny dreams, like that are animated, like I'm moving frame by frame sometimes, which is crazy, and it can be a whole night. And you wake up and go like, and then you go and you move yourself. I don't even know how to explain it, because I don't understand while I'm awake, but in the dream it made perfect sense what I was doing. And so you get weird stuff happening, because it's so the stop motion, it is so, it happens in non-real time, and the non-real time is so stretched. The time is so stretched that it makes some adjustments in your head, makes you a little bit crazy, and you may just do funny things, think in a different way sometimes. So I do sometimes in the dreams, or I feel like I remember once I felt like a pancake they couldn't move. I could just roll. It was for an hour I would just roll from one side to another, being a pancake rolled, not like a rolled pancake with chocolate. Well, so it's not from the set. This is what happens with you when you just release and let go, and then it grabs you from another side. And yeah.
Could you tell us any interesting animation techniques people might not be aware of?
In what way? Like a technique, like a trick?
Yeah. Or something that helps you animate in general that people might not be generally aware of.
Sometimes, like I probably don't know anything that special that I would like. I like to do things spontaneously. Like I don't like blockings, for example. I don't like setting it and knowing exactly where I'm going, because it feels like I've done it already. And I like to just do it and see how it goes, which is obviously the danger of doing it. Have to do it again. You have to do it again because it doesn't, which happens sometimes when there is a critical timing. I know last week, 2 weeks ago, I did a, last week I was sick. 2 weeks ago, I did a shot when I had blocking, and halfway through, I forgot to look at it. and I went off completely with the dialogue basically off the screen, which I didn't mind, but it was because I had to do it again, which was then better. But technique, I know that there is one great technique that I can share with you, but it's not mine. I learned it, and I know it's not known a lot because I told some old animators and they were very happy that because we were discussing the most, I think the most difficult part to animate is when let's say you have a puppet standing and not doing anything in particular, just looking. Okay, so you can't just shoot 50 frames of the same shot. The puppet needs to be doing something, but it was supposed to just do nothing and stare. Okay, and you go like, okay, great. I've learned one great technique of how to do that from YouTube, from Tim Allen, who's a really, really good animator working on big films, and he's got some tutorials on the web, and there was one that totally solved my problem in this way. And so it is basically as you have the character tied down with 2 screws, like even if the character is standing and you are not, it's not going to walk, it's better to tie down to both legs, because when you touch it, then it stops from pivoting around one leg, and so you don't have to correct it all over, so it kind of, the physiognomy of the puppet is a little bit more to work with when you have tied down to, on both legs. Now, if you just have a standing puppet and you have it firmly tied, and then you slowly untie one leg and then untie, just loosen one leg, loosen another leg while tightening the first one, and you kind of do it very slowly, and then you don't touch the puppet, and then each time you kind of loosen the screw or tie it down, you take a frame. In 50 frames, you play it back, and puppet is nicely wobbling there and back and to the sides as it was kind of gaining balance, but very naturally. So that's a great trick. It's like one of the best tricks I've learned for otherwise very hard to solve a situation when the character is doing nothing. It's the most difficult part for me, used to be before this, just let it stare. How? So okay, so if there was a trick that I've learned, not mine, and I can pass on, then this would be it.
Kind of reminds me of the old, like, the most difficult thing in acting is being told to act natural, just in a resting state. It's like, what do I do with myself?
exactly, just be natural. Yeah.
How do you think about doing nothing at all?
Yeah, exactly, just don't do anything. Okay, how does it look like? That's what I'm doing all the time, but now
in this moment, how do I actively do nothing? Yeah.
exactly.
So you kind of you mentioned this a little before, but with technology kind of moving forward, are there any techniques or older, like, practices that you've seen kind of fade out of the foreground of animation or stop being used? And are there any, like, newer techniques that you've witnessed come into the forefront of animation as a result of newer technologies?
Well, the thing is that obviously the film was changed for digital. That brought in one factor that, as a, like I used to shoot film when I was studying. Okay, then further on, I always used digital. But the film there was one big problem with the film, that you were not able to see what you just shot. So when I edited my school film, I had 3 minutes in my Bolex camera, which was the 100-foot roll. Excuse me, 3 minutes, which took me 3 weeks to animate. And I could only pray that everything's okay, that it's in focus, that there is no dirt in the gate, or hair, or dust, because obviously it hasn't been touched for three weeks. In the terms of I mean, you could shot by shot, you could go and check it, but still you don't know, you cannot thoroughly check the camera. It's not to enlight the film. So that was difficult, and obviously you don't know if the animation worked. And so animators had different tools, like a measure tools, to move in front of the puppet and to calculate how far it goes. And if there was a crowd, you kind of have to calculate everything. And so you had a huge dope sheet, X sheet, and you've put everything that you kind of calculated by your storyboard, that you made an animatic of your storyboard with the sound, if there was a sound, and you timed it, and you wrote the timing into the dope sheet, and then you followed the dope sheet. Today you have a dragon frame. You still have the dope sheet there. You can still make notes, but you always see what you've done. If it's in focus, you can play back the animation. Is it too fast? Is it too slow? Is it jerky? Or was there a frame that wasn't? Because the puppet is not only about moving forward or back, but it's all about to look natural. So it needs to move the elbows and the shoulders and hips and everything. For example, when it's walking or sitting, this kind of way, or when you get up, so you need to kind of shift your weight, and then and you wouldn't be able to check this. So you'd use different tools, and these tools are still used by some old animators, but you don't need to use the tools. You can, if you want it, you can draw on the dragon's frame screen, or you can just check it playing back and forth. And so that is definitely what's changed. Otherwise, that's when it comes to the stop motion. Obviously, then there is 3D animation that has, I don't know, there's no limit to what you can do and how. I've recently been shown something in development that they're doing, and it is having, and I'm not sure I like it or not, but maybe it's the future of the, let's say, television animation, like children's series and stuff. They have a plugin, or they're building a plugin here in Czech Republic for Actually, I cannot talk about. Sorry, it's still in development. Very sorry. Sorry, it's
too cutting it.
it's yeah. No, I wasn't given a permission to talk about this, and I've just realized that. Okay, but I said something. I didn't say anything actually. But yeah, there are some improvements coming. But to be honest, there, except from the part that now you can see what you're doing, what you've done, and you can play it, and you can delete frames, for example, you can double frames, you can loop it, you can, on the spot while still animating. That's amazing. That's amazing, and I like it. And I do not cry after the old ways where I didn't see anything. I don't. I didn't. It was very, very tensed. It was very even like scary or whatever. It was, what's the word?
Uncertain.
I'm very uncertain, and you were nervous the whole time while animating. How it looks actually. So, and if you obviously if you had big budget like the big studios, and you can send every day somehow compile together the film and have it develop and see. But I couldn't. So 3 weeks, and if it was bad, I didn't have another 3 weeks to go. That's it. That was my work, my film. So yeah, I don't miss that. So I think that this is good. In the animation environment, I like the digital stepping in helps us a lot, actually. So and otherwise, the method is pretty much the same. It's just that now you see what you're doing, so you can feel freer, more relaxed. Always erase it, and you never. All you can waste is time. You don't waste film or development like money or something. Time is what you can waste. Yeah, when you not doing things the way or when they not work out the way. But it's normal, No, sorry.
It seems like the digitalization process gave you guys more control over your animation end product. But as an animator, how much control would you have over the story and overall creative process of the films you worked on?
Okay, if you are only the animator on the film, because obviously every animator is basically a director of animated films, and you are taught to do your own stories and your own solo. But if you hire as an animator on a film that's already done, you can, if you're the only animator on a film, then there is a good way to discuss stuff with the director, and the cameraman and even the editor maybe. But if you're one of several animators and you only do, let's say, a fifth of a film, and you do different scenes out of context and everything, you need to be explained by the director, what exactly they want in the scene to happen emotionally. I always ask for emotions. I don't care as much about how technically or action is also important, but the emotion is more important, and then the action is then based on the emotion, and so the director needs to tell you the emotion, the feeling of the shot, and then you are the actor. You act it. So your position, the animator is the actor. Actually, you are acting the puppet, which is very important. Very important. the emotion will be passed on the viewer. And if the director usually, because as you progress through the film, you have the luxury today to export the animation, put it in the edit suite, see if it works on top of the the storyboard, the animatic, and you see how it works, and you build up the edit that is just rough, but you are shown the shots before and shots after, if there are any, and you need to feel the emotion in the scene, in a couple of shots, and just convey either the same emotion, or if there is a change of an emotion, that you have to act it out. So you are, as an actor, will be discussing stuff with director and saying, hey, look, maybe if I did this, and the director says, yeah, sure, do that, let's try. And so in here, you have your ideas, and then you consult it, and if it sounds good, then it's taken in, and it's doing it that way. The difference between live action and animation is that usually there are no second takes or third takes, particularly not on a not huge budget film like some studios in England or in the United States. They do first two takes as blocking, basically, and then the third is refined blocking, and then fourth is actually taken as a take. Yeah, but that's time consuming, so you are trying to go for the first take, and so the decision needs to be talked through intensively with the director or the cameraman, who's got also some input on how things look, yeah, so that is your influence about the end of the product, is that you will always try to make the acting appropriate and the best for the shot, and that that it needs to be. So did it answer the question? Did I answer the question?
Yeah, you answered the question.
Okay.
I think it kind of like led into our next question too.
Yeah, like I said, you spoke a little bit about sort of the parallels between like acting and sculpting, but in terms of challenges, what are some of the differences you'd say between working with animation and live action? Like, what are some of the challenges you might run into as an animator that you might not even have to consider for a live action film?
Nothing comes to my mind. I'd say animation is because you are controlling the puppet basically frame by frame, which is 24 in a second. You can kind of even magically overcome any obstacle which in live action would not be possible. The actor there would be no way for the actor to do that. Like, I don't know, pull 5 things out of its pockets and put them back in 1 second. Okay, I don't know. Animated character can do this. Live action character cannot do this. Or jump over a long distance. Obviously having a rig. I mean, you can do that obviously with a it's probably not a good example.
It sounds like it's almost a bit of a trade-off, less like a challenge and more like you trade time for an increased ability to do, like you were saying, things you might not be able
Yeah,
to do with live action.
yeah. Um, there's also a reason why you do, for example, animated film with having people as characters, is to be able to do stuff that is like stylized. Let's say you can you can fit a whole huge birthday cake into your mouth, basically on 3 frames. Something that you can exaggerate things, you can stylize things that would look odd if they were live action, but are looking perfectly normal when they animated, even with humans like people. You can do, because you can do stop tricks, it's stop motion, so you can appear things out of nowhere, disappear them, or you don't. And for example, a little Wizzy the mouse in the Mice Belong to Heaven could pull a card out of her back, and then read it and put it back, and she didn't have any pockets, and nobody would ask, oh, why, how. You can do things that you wouldn't be able to do in normal. And obviously there was animals, so you wouldn't be able to really do with animals what you could do in animation. But even if it's people, it's just it allows you to do something magical, I would say.
That's been a consistent theme of advice we've heard throughout this podcast, has been knowing exactly what you want. Like the more you know what you're trying to do, the better you can select on what you're trying to do it with. So knowing if like you were saying, you want to do something more whimsical, more magical, being able to use the tools animation has to offer can enable you to do something, like you said, you couldn't do with live action.
Yeah, definitely. And it's for example, like Wallace and Gromit, right? There's this guy and the dog. This would never be possible having with live action. The early man, so it's about football, and there is this hog as part of, and you kind of it's kind of a fairy tale, and you can make fun of anything, of the queen, for example. Oh, she's dead now, but before, maybe that wasn't. You'll be forgiven a lot more also when you animate things, and the animators as are usually also very like rebellistic can be. They can go against the flow, they can go against politics, they can use the animation like a cartoon or satirically. So it gives you kind of you have a card because it's not real. It's kind of not real, and you can allow yourself be a little bit more critique to stuff that is critical. Yeah, you can be more critical to society or politics, politicians, or you can address issues with animation a lot better than with live action. Yeah. So I think this is also a good part of the animated world, is that you can be satirical by using a cartoon-like style.
Yeah, almost like you get away with a little bit more. Like
You get away with a little bit more, and there will no persecution of actors will happen. Yeah. Mm.
So, as we kind of reach the end of our time here today, do you have any advice for aspiring animators, for prospective students who want to get into the field, looking to start out in the industry?
Um, well, after school,
After, during, at any point in the journey?
anything, at any point. Well, at any point, you can. There's actually been kind of like a rebirth of stop motion animation, or a handmade animation in the past 5 years. Suddenly, it just went, and there's a lot of festivals around the world. So, and you can, even with your mobile phone, or if you have an SLR camera, it doesn't have to be expensive at all. You don't even need an expensive too good lens, or even lighting expensive. You can basically do it with a very low budget. If you have a nice story, you can enter festivals, and festivals are also always full of people looking for people. Or you can find a local animation studio and ask them if you can work for free there. Usually nobody will pay you for you to learn stuff. But you can, learn, assist, and then in half a year time, you'll be working, and see, you can. It's not for everyone. Also, you can find yourself that usually you work in the dark. Depends on the scene, but there is no sunlight in the studio. So, like in the winter, we come to work, it's almost still dark. We go from work, it's dark, and we work in the dark. So after 1 or 2 years like this, your perspective on whether you want to do it this way or not can change, because it also alters your mood. So you also need to consider these things, how much it can influence you in this way. You work usually alone, being with the puppets, so the environment is not social. So not everyone is suitable for this. It can be even depressing. So it really depends on a person. An extrovert will hardly survive doing stop motion animation in a studio. Or maybe not, but it's the animation studios are full of introverted people who can actually get, feel into this, and they do their stuff, and they feel good in it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's very lonely job. But it's beautiful. Yeah. It's you giving life to something that doesn't have life, and so something is dead, and you making it alive. And that's beautiful. So if you see it this way, then it's very like heartwarming, and you imagine these puppets to live. And yeah,
Mine's up.
when I did computer animation, which I tried, and I got scared of this digital space because there was no boundaries. And I know I made my first rocket that landed just off the scene, and I nearly got a panic attack because I didn't know how the rocket. Suddenly it was falling down, and I couldn't imagine where it's ending, where it's going to end. Stupid, but it's like you kind of feel into the environment, and the digital environment is very depressing for me. So I need to work with something I can touch, and I can see, touch, be in a relationship with. So
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Well, I would like to say once more, thank you very much, Viliam, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Nice. Thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
You too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Thank you.
And that concludes this week's episode of Filmosphere. I hope you all have a great day, and signing off.